Hey everyone, Chad here with another cooking video. Today we're not actually going to be cooking, but we're going to be canning. So if you watched my last video, then you know that I had made some of my Whistlin Dixie BBQ sauce, and it makes 10 cups. And you know, it's not needed. 10 cups of sauce is enough for like food for 75, 100 people. So I'm going to be canning it. Picked up some half-pint canning jars at Wally World last night. So we're going to be using these, and I'll basically take you step by step through how to get the sauce out of the stock pot and get it into the canning jars. So go ahead and stay tuned, and I'll get this all wrapped up. All right, well, here we are. I have a saucepan here that is boiling, or about to be boiling, with some water in it. And I have taken the ring and the lid off of the canning jars. So you have your jar, you have a ring that goes onto the jar, or a lid that goes onto the jar rather, and then a ring, and they just screw on there. And you can see, I don't put it on there very tight. I mean, it's like, you don't want to cinch it, you don't Hercules it down. You want it just on there once you've filled them up. And I'll explain that a little bit more here in a moment. But, it's very important that you get everything all sanitized here. You don't want to get any of the nastiness in the food. Make sure everything is good. Another thing too is these rings, don't reuse them. Some people like to save them after they open up a jar that they had canned and use them again. But this seal that's on the back here, it really is only meant for one-time use. People will argue that you can, and I don't doubt that you probably can't. But I don't want to run the risk of this seal being damaged in any way whatsoever. And they're, like I said, they're like, I don't know, like $1.50, $1.75 for a package of these at Walmart. Just do yourself a favor, throw these away after every use. You don't save the jar or the metal lid to the top of your tuna container. Why would you save these? You just don't be that frugal. But yeah, you want to just get all of these into the boiling water as soon as it comes up here, and it looks like it's boiling now. So just everybody into the pool. You want to put all this stuff in here, especially the ones that are flying on the floor. And everything. Give this one a rinse. Not that 212 degree water isn't going to sanitize it, because it is. So you basically want to let those boil in the pot. I like to let mine go, for 2 minutes. And I also wanted to show you, I probably should show you this here before I go open it up. This is the Prep Works canning set, and it comes with a few things in here. Mainly this stick right here. It has a magnet on it that lets you pick up the lids out of the boiling water. It's like huge help. The other thing it has is this item here. It's a jar gripper, so that when you have your in the next step, when we go to pull the jars out of the water, it's easy enough to grab a hold of them. And last but not least is this guy here. It basically slips over top of the jar, and it keeps the outside of the jar, from you slopping stuff all over the rings of the glass. Great thing to have. But I'll put a link down in the description below so that you can pick up one of these on Amazon. It will save you a lot of time when you're canning. All of these have been boiling now in the water for about 2.5 minutes or so now. So again, this was the tool I was talking about. This is the magnet. This will make things so much easier. Watch this. Look at that. Right up out of the hot water and right on over to your very clean dish towel. These are all nice and sanitized now. And it's just enough of a magnet to get it out, but not to the point where you can't, like, you know, it's so strong it doesn't let go. So this, see, it's a 2-for-1 deal there. You know, and you know, you don't want to touch these. I mean, they are hot, first things first, but you know, aside from that, they you know, they have just been sanitized. So you know, keep your hands off them as much as possible. Drain the water off of these lids when you pull them out. I like to leave mine seal side up when I put them on the towel, but you know, personal preference, I suppose. Whoop. Come on up out of there. Sometimes you'll get 2 lids that are stuck together, and if that happens, you know, just give it a moment. The vacuum will release off of them. Got a couple more hiding in here. All right, last one coming on out. Turn that off. All right, we got these out here. I will get my jar set up in the next step, and I'll bring you on back. Okay, I am back here, and I would have done this earlier, but I couldn't actually find this. When I sterilized the lids, I normally do it in this pot here. This pot is what I use to sterilize my jars when I'm canning. So I need to basically I put the rack. This little round rack actually came out of my pressure cooker, and you can also do this in your pressure cooker. I'm just a little old school, I guess, in the sense that I like to, I don't know, I like to do them in the stock pot instead. But that's what this rack came from, if you're wondering. You can buy dedicated canning jars, pots. They sell them, and I'll have a link to that down in the description below. But I actually picked this up. This is actually a pasta pot. It has the you know, like the colander insert that goes down into it. So if you have one of these, you know, and you happen to have a pressure cooker and you want to do it this way, you know, this is probably the hardest thing to find if you don't have a pressure cooker. Most pressure cookers come with these little round racks, because they got the little feet on the bottom to help it stand off the bottom of the flame, and that's what you want. If you buy a dedicated canning jar pot, that will come with a rack, and it's usually got like a handles on it, and they're bigger, so that you can get, you know, lots of quart jars or pint jars down into the pot at one time. But you know, I'm going to be using this, and I normally use this to sterilize my lids and my rings as well. But I couldn't find this a little bit ago when I started doing that. But anyhow, this just drops right down to the bottom, and I'm gonna fill this up with you know, you want hot water, but you don't want boiling water. And what you're gonna do is put your jars into the pot on top of the rack, face side up, so you know, jar like you're gonna drink out of it. Just set them straight down. Yeah, and with these half pint jars, you can get what, 7 of them, 7 of them in there. So I'm going to go ahead and just fill this up with water, and you want the water to come 1 inch above the top of your jars. So you know, that's why you really couldn't use you know, you couldn't use a regular stock pot for this. You need something a bit taller for that purpose. And one thing that will help when you're doing this is if you fill up a jar and fill your jars up, because right now they're empty, but you need water inside the jars. And I'll show you this in a moment here. I apologize for all the noise. I know this is really loud on my microphone probably. So we want to get this, like I said, 1 inch above the top of the jars, and that's about it right there. Let me bring you over here a moment. See if you can see that. Here's the jars. They are completely full of water, and they're just down in there, waiting to go to a boil, which is the next step here. So you want to go ahead and turn your fire on and crank it up. I know that this pot takes at least 15 minutes to come up to a boil. It's I think this is like a 10 quart or yeah, something like that, 9 quart, 8 quart stock pot, so it does take a while to boil. So I will bring you back when this has actually come to a boil. But what you want to do is bring it to a boil and let it then boil for 10 minutes once it's at a rolling boil. So see you in a moment. Oh my gosh. Okay. My microphone was completely turned off through that entire part here. So, well, what I'm doing here is I've got my tongs and I'm dumping the water out into the jars, or out of the jars and into the pot. I've left the fire on. This is still very much boiling. You want to keep your temperature up. You don't want to turn this off, because as soon as you get these jars out of the water, you want to get them filled and get them back in here to process the ingredients and actually can them. Just be careful though, these are hot. Okay, so that water is going to continue to keep boiling there, and I'm going to bring you in and show you what I was talking about while my microphone was turned off. This little gadget is what came in the box with the canning stuff, and it has some measurements you can see on there: 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch. This side has the millimeters on it. What you're doing, whoop, those are toasty. Let's not grab one of those. Grab one of these. You're going to sit this down on your jar, and you can see in here 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch. The top marking right here is the one that sits on the very top of the jar. When you are canning foods, everything has a different amount of space. It's called headspace that needs to be maintained from the top of the ingredient in the jar to the actual top of the seal in the rim. You know, these are all different based on what you're canning. For my barbecue sauce that I'm canning today, I am going to be leaving a 1/2 inch headspace, and that again is just the distance from the barbecue sauce to the top of the actual seal on the jar. If you're canning and you don't know how much headspace to leave, just Google it. It's very easy. You know, different vegetables, meats, jellies, jams, you know, butters, all that stuff has different head space requirements. This jar makes it, or attachment makes it super simple to put this on there. You literally just pop it on there, and you can see on the inside. I mean, you're not going to make a mess. It's not going to go all over the outside of the jar or anything like that. It's just bam, it's like right on there. That's all you got to do. So in this next step here, we are actually going to be moving on to what's called processing. Processing is what actually makes the food safe to kind of stick in your pantry and makes it shelf stable, if you will. And the way that you determine how much time it takes to process a food is really, there's a lot of things that go into it, but if you're looking at a recipe online or in a cookbook, they will tell you how long to process foods. It's also dictated by your elevation above sea level for how long that you need to process it. Now my particular barbecue sauce, I'm going to put a graphic in right here, and you'll see for the elevations to where you're at as to how long you need to process it. So if you don't know what your elevation above sea level is, Google is always your friend if you have an iPhone. How high above sea level is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania?
Let me think. The elevation of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania is about 764 feet.
Well, I know that that's not correct. I think they misunderstood me. What is the sea level of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania?
Okay, I found this on the web for what is the sea level of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
And it is, the highest listed elevation is 1,370 feet above sea level. So I know that I need to, my house is not at the highest elevation in the city. So I am going to process my sauce for 25 minutes because it's between the 1,000 and 3,000 feet above sea level. So I'm going to go ahead and get these jars filled up with the barbecue sauce, and I will bring you back. I have my jars all filled here. Now, what I did determine is that I miscalculated on the amount of sauce. So 2, 4, 6, 8. So this actually fills 9 half-pint jars. I only have 8 here because I actually reserved what would have been going in the next jar. I left it in the stock pot because I am actually going to be smoking some of my St. Louis style ribs. So there's no need to waste the time canning it. I'll just take it right down to that. But I ended up in the break actually sterilizing that other jar that wouldn't fit down in there. So had you actually been canning the whole recipe and not using any of it now, you would have probably needed to, I would have definitely needed to have re-sterilized that jar again, a second batch of jars anyhow, because they wouldn't have all fit. If you have one of the actual canning pots, if you will, they are much larger. I think they're like a 20, something crazy, like a 20 quart. They're giant. That you could have easily had fit. I think in those you can fit 10 half pint jars into them. So just something to keep in mind. But anyhow, at this point we are now ready to process the jars. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that you don't have any sauce around the lips of the jars. If you're using one of these, it does a pretty good job keeping it clean, but it still doesn't hurt to take a paper towel, just to, check it out, make sure there's nothing around the outside, the top rim. Doesn't look like it. Looks like everything, looks like I did a pretty good job of keeping things clean. And you can see here, I'll bring up one of these if it's not too hot. It's a little toasty, but you can see here what I was talking about with the headspace. You see it has a 1/2 inch headspace, and it basically come right up to just above the top of that bottom lip. But what you also want to do is make sure that you get out any air bubbles from the jar. And the way that you do that is I take a butter knife and I drop it. Yeah, I've already done this. You drop it down into your boiling water and just let it boil for a few minutes. because you want to, anything you're going to stick into this, you want to make sure that it's sterilized as well. Otherwise, you're just kind of defeating the purpose of having just gone through the process of sterilizing everything. But that will go. Let me actually sit this down and grab my sterilized one. Okay. You just kind of want to, you're really just like bopping it up and down just to make sure that you don't have, any air bubbles stuck down. And be careful, because you see I just got a little bit on the edge of the jar, the rim. Tap it a little bit. This isn't necessarily as important for something as watery or liquidy as this sauce is. This is really more important if you're doing something a little more solid, if you will, that you don't have any air trapped down in the bottom. But it's a good practice to get into regardless, just to, form good habits, if you will, I guess. Okay. And let me clean up that little spill I had there. Okay, so now the next step here is to take your lids and seals and everything that I sterilized before and pop one down on each one of these. Make sure you get it centered, especially with these jars being hot and the liquid inside being hot. They have a habit to kind of be real tacky, and you can move them around, but just do your best here to get everything all sealed up here and lined straight. Alright, and then the next thing is to take these rings. This is probably the most, well, I guess this is all important, but this is one of those pay attention moments. Pop it down here. Okay. And this is something that's really hard to show in a video, but I'm going to do my best. Okay. This ring is barely sitting on there. Okay. I'm going to back it off. It's just barely sitting on there. And you don't want to cross thread, but you want to turn it until you meet some resistance. Once you meet the resistance, give it just a tiny bit of a turn, just to make sure that that seal is sitting on the jar. The reason that you do that is if there is any air in there, which there is because we left the headspace, that will when you're processing your jars in the boiling water, will give it the opportunity to set the seal on the jar properly. And then once the processing time is over and you pull them out of the boiling water and they've cooled a little bit, then you can go ahead and kind of cinch it down. But you don't want you don't want to put it on there like you're sticking a jar back in the fridge right now. Just keep it loosey-goosey, but not too loosey or goosey. But yeah, that's all you got to do. Get these all in here. There we go. Okay, so these are all tightened up here now. We're going to go ahead and grab our tongs again, and we're going to carefully lower these. When you're grabbing these, grab them down at the bottom. It's a little sturdier, a little safer. All we're going to do now, put them down into the water, one at a time. And these can be a little tricky, you know, when you first get the first couple in there to get them lined up. You don't want them to. You want to be careful. You don't want to like jostle the sauce all around at this point. You want to just get them down into the water, you know, and if sometimes it helps to have another tool to kind of shove the other ones out of the way, but you know, should be able to get this other one down in here. Okay, so they're in there. This guy is going to have to sit here and just hang out until these other ones are done. So as I said before, it's all based on the distance, sea level that you are, and whoa, there we go. Live TV, that's what they say, right? But yeah, so it's really all about you know, getting the figuring out how high above sea level that you are, and then just calculating from the graphic that I had shared on how long this goes. So these are going to be going in here for 25 minutes. Once that's done, I will bring you back. I have that other one to do, so I've got about 50 minutes of processing, you know, before I'm all done here. But that's kind of the gist of it. You know, you just you know, sterilize, fill it up, process it, pull it out, let it cool off, and yeah, that's it. But I'll bring you back here after these have finished processing. Okay, everybody, we're back here. It has been 25 minutes. And excuse my reach while I grab my tongs, and we're going to pull these out of here. And again, getting the first one out of the jar, or first jar out of the pot rather, is always the most difficult one to get out. Alright, let's grab ours now. Here we go. Ta-da! Okay. that was a little bit crazy there, but that's okay. That happens. It's a little easier if you don't put the jar in the middle of the pot. You leave one out. Makes it a little easier. Did you hear that pop? They're all going to start doing that here in a minute. As you take these jars out of the boiling water and they sit, you're going to start hearing some pop, 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 popping. And that is basically just meaning that the seal on the lid has, oh, there goes another one, has set. So, you know, you've seen those, you know, when you get a jelly jar, oh, there goes another one, at the grocery store, you know, they'll say, you know, don't use if seal popped or seal open, and that's all that is. It's the air and the vacuum pressure just tightening these all up here. So right now I know that this one and this one popped. Looks like this one, that one just went. That one just went. I think we're just waiting on these two here. If they don't pop, don't use them. I mean, you can use them, but don't store them in your pantry, because it means that they haven't sealed, and they will spoil. What you can do is, if you want to, you can put them back in the boiling water as I need to do, because I have this other jar here. And when you do that, you also want to keep an eye on your water level, because if it's not, if you've boiled, it's been boiling for 25 minutes, we have lost some water in there, and I need to actually fill this up, because the jar I just put in there was like that far from the top of the jar, and we need to have an inch of water over the top, so I need to add about that much water into my pot. We'll see here. I don't think, actually that one did go. Maybe they all did go. I didn't think I heard them, but you can check though. What you want to do though at this point is just let these cool off. Okay, they're going to cool out, and then once they're cool, you can come back in and give them that final turn tight, like I was talking about, to set them in there. But until that happens, just let these sit here and cool. Probably, their jars, they've been in boiling water for 25 minutes. It's going to probably take them a half an hour, 45 minutes before you can actually really handle these. So just let them sit there, let them cool off, and they'll be okay. And I'm gonna get the water filled back up in here for the next one. But I do hope that that this was helpful for you, and that you learned a couple of things along the way. So I want you to go ahead and tune into the next video in this 3-part series, where I'm actually going to be smoking some St. Louis style baby back ribs using some of the sauce here that we just canned. So if you like this video, please go ahead and give it a big old thumbs up. I really appreciate that. And hit that subscribe button. While you're at it, hit the little bell icon so that you can get notified the next time that the next video gets posted up. I'm not sure yet how I'm going to put these videos out. I'm probably going to stagger them by a day on the upload. So if you're watching this in real time, you may not see the next video right away, but that will be coming. But again, thanks so much for watching, and have a great day.